On snow days, do you have a favorite game? Sleepy. Wayne, you are just a fun guy, you know? You have a favorite game? Anybody like canasta or bridge or Monopoly? Which one? Backgammon. All right, anybody have a favorite game? Hand and foot? That's a game? Farco? We got Farco players? How fun is that? All right, so today we're going to talk about playing games. All right, this is my final series. I've been doing a series on living an audacious life. And this is going to be the final the talk. And I want to talk about the game of life because I believe that we're all playing the game of life and that there are rules to this game of life. And that our kingdom, our life is our kingdom. And that we are the queen of our queendom or the king of our kingdom. And I want you to be so excited about the game of life and how you're playing it and what it's creating for you. And I want you to say with me as we begin, my world is my kingdom. Together? My world is my kingdom. One more time like we're excited. My world is my kingdom. Now, in most games, there are a set of rules, right? And I have 5 for you. And these 5 rules are universal. They apply to everyone. No matter what game you're playing, when it comes to the game of life, these 5 rules are always in place. And they're always in place even when you don't believe they're in place, right? Because sometimes we don't think the rules of life should be the rules, and we want to have our own separate rules that may or may not work. Has anybody ever tried to play a game that didn't work? Like what we know about the games in Vegas, right? Is that if you play those games over a long period of time, it is in the house's favor that they will win. True? Now, some of you may be so blessed, so lucky, so whatever, that every time I have a friend like that, who every time they go to Vegas, they just win, and it's not my path. Right? But there are 5 rules, and I believe that these are universal rules that apply no matter who you are. The first rule is, in the game of life, everything is allowed whether you like it or not. Whether you think it should be allowed or not, it is allowed. In the game of life, literally everything is allowed. Because you have free will, there is no judgment on what is allowed in your kingdom or anybody else's kingdom. There is no moral judgment about what is allowed in the kingdom of life. In the kingdom of life, light and dark, hope and pain, fear and love are all allowed in the kingdom. And you absolutely have free will of what you create in your kingdom. But it's all allowed. And many times people say, well, that shouldn't be allowed, right? Many times people see something happening in the world and they say, that shouldn't happen. God shouldn't allow that to happen. But in the game of life, everything is allowed, not only in your kingdom, but in everybody else's kingdom. Because sometimes in our kingdom, we peer over the fence and look at other people's kingdom and think in their kingdom, that shouldn't be allowed. But in the game of life, everything is allowed because we have free will. And as spiritual beings, the way we mature is having access to everything. So in the game of life, everything is allowed. Everything can be a part of the game. And we may not like it, but everything is allowed. Second rule, in the game of life, everything is not only allowed, but it's possible. In your kingdom, not only is everything allowed and you get to create whatever you want, but everything is possible. There's no impossibility. In your kingdom, you can have anything you want in it, and it's all possible. Rich or poor, happy or sad, ugly or beautiful. There are no limits to what can be in your kingdom. You're the only one that gets to define the limits of your kingdom, but everything is possible, right? With God, we read in Scripture, with God, all things are possible. So in your kingdom, everything is possible whether you believe it or not, whether you like it or not. Everything is allowed and everything is possible. And I just want you to hold that for a moment. That in your life, what if you actually lived your life as if everything was allowed and everything was possible. Now, do you have to create everything, right? Like, if everything is in the universe, everything is infinite, but if you go to a buffet, you don't need to eat it all. Right? How many of you have ever tried? Like, gone to a buffet and all you can eat, thinking, I'm not leaving here, and you got your stretchy pants on, right? You sit down at the buffet and you think, I'm not leaving this buffet until I get at least 5 times my money's worth, right? So you sit down and you just go to town, right? And it's allowed. It's possible that you could stay at that buffet until you make yourself so sick. And you get to stay there as long as you want, gorging yourself, because it's allowed and it's possible, but it may not be for your highest and the best. And what we're learning as spiritual beings, even though everything is allowed and everything is possible, it may not be the best for us, right? It may not work. So the first one is everything's allowed. Second one is everything is possible. Third, all kingdoms exist and coexist together. Meaning every person's kingdom is interwoven into every other person's kingdom. They're entangled, they're in web, they're connected. So we're all in this together at some level. It's 100% your kingdom, but it touches other kingdoms. It overlays other kingdoms. You're living your life while your neighbor, while your friend, while your partner, while your children, while your grandchildren. Everybody's living their life. It's their kingdom. And all the kingdoms are touching. And that's the good news and the bad news, right? Is they all coexist all at the same time. So and Jesus said, if I be lifted up, I draw all people unto me. And that's the idea that as any one of us moves into a higher level or a greater creation in our kingdom, all the boats rise. Everything moves higher, right? That's why there's group mind, we talk about mob mentality, because all the kingdoms are connected. 4, kingdoms tend to be stable. And what that means is the longer your kingdom takes on a certain form, the more likely it is to stay that way. So if you have a condition or a situation in your life, the longer it's in your life, the more it tends to stay in your life. And part of us thinks that's just wrong, right? But that's why kingdoms stay stable, is because Newton's first law of motion says that a body at rest wants to stay at rest. And a body in motion wants to stay in motion unless it's acted upon. So your kingdom tends to want to be the way it's always been, unless you put energy and act upon it differently. And that's why sometimes when we want our kingdom to change, if we want to live in a more abundant, more happy, more fully alive kingdom, we have to be intentional in the amount of energy we put into our kingdom so that our kingdom actually changes. Because if we are left alone, our kingdom tends to be the same way it's always been, over and over again, until it's acted upon by something else, usually ourselves. And the 5th rule is your kingdom is always greater than you realize. Your kingdom is bigger and greater and more wonderful than you realize. And most of the time, what we think is our kingdom is a very small circle in the midst of our kingdom. And if we're really going to play this game well, we have to realize that most everything you see is a part of your kingdom. Like for some of us, we just want our little happy, abundant little circle to be a part of our kingdom. Like this is my little garden, and I'm growing my little garden, and my little garden is fabulous, and I love my little garden. Oh, that stuff over on there, that's not really mine, that's somebody else's. And no, it's yours. It's all yours. What you see is your kingdom. And as we learn to transform our kingdom, we actually move into a bigger kingdom. And there's promises to us that the kingdom is designed to be abundant. Jesus said it this way. in Luke 12. Fear not, little flock, for it is the Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. In Joshua 1, this is God speaking to Joshua. After the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord said to Joshua, son of Nun, Moses' minister, Moses' number 2, said this, Moses, my servant, is dead. Therefore, arise, go over the Jordan, and you and all these people in the land which I'm giving to them, to the people of Israel. Every place that the soles of your feet will tread upon, I have given to you, as I promised to Moses. From the wilderness and this Lebanon, as far as the great river Euphrates, to the land of the Hittites, to the great sea, toward the going down of the sun, shall be your territory. No man shall be able to stand before you all the days of your life. As I was with Moses, I will be with you. I will not fail you or forsake you. Be strong and of good courage, for you should cause these people to inherit the land which I swore to their fathers to give them. I want you to see today that God has made a promise, and we call this sometimes the promised land, but it's a metaphor for a promise that God has made to each one of us about the kingdom that has been offered to us. And at its ultimate level, this kingdom is a spiritual kingdom. But it has a physical component. It has a three-dimensional component. And as we learn to manage the three-dimensional aspect of our kingdom, we actually begin to see the infinite goodness of God. That everywhere you see is our opportunity to put the promises of God to work in a meaningful way to transform our life in greater and greater ways. In Deuteronomy 8, we read this, for the Lord God is bringing you into a good land, a land of brooks of water, of fountains and springs, flowing forth in the valleys and hills, a land of wheat and barley, of vines and fig trees, and of pomegranates, a land of olive tree and honey, a land which you will eat bread without scarcity, in which you'll lack nothing, a land whose stones are iron, and out of those hills you will dig copper, and you shall eat and be full. You shall be blessed the Lord your God, for that land is good that he has given to you. Now, it's a metaphor for a spiritual condition, but we actually have to start in our life right now looking at our earthly kingdom and transforming our earthly kingdom and incorporating all the gifts of God. When Jesus was teaching his disciples, he said, my kingdom is not of this earth. But for us, where we live today is very much in this earth. We are people of this earth. We are the sons and daughters of this earth. And as we begin to transform our kingdom using spiritual principles, we actually help bring forth the kingdom of heaven right here, right now, by allowing our mind and heart to be open to the divine influences that allow it to be created in our life so that our life is the outpicturing of the goodness of God. So how do we do that? Well, I think there's two qualities that are required to transform our life. And I believe that being audacious in both of these qualities is fundamentally important. And the first quality that I want to talk to about this transformation is the audacity of desire. How many of you were raised in a household where you were taught not to ask for too much? Like, anybody ever get a smack because you asked for something that was too much and you were just kind of taught that you weren't to ask for more than was appropriate? Or sometimes in spiritual communities we're taught that you shouldn't really ask for too much. But if the universe is infinite, if God is infinite, if the kingdom is infinite, then every time you expand your desires, you're actually allowing the infinite goodness of God to fill your life. Remember the play Oliver, the musical Oliver? And the little boy comes up and says, please, sir, may I have more, right? And he's asking for another bowl of porridge, right? And it's this whole idea that there's a part of us that almost feels guilty in having a desire. But living in an infinite universe, we have to have the audacity to ask for the life that we want, to go for a life that's beyond what we know into a higher level of good. And there's an art to believing, because it does take energy to believe in more than you've ever known before. See, if you're raised in limitation, limitation feels comfortable. We're used to it. We actually call it normal. And so when you have the audacity to ask for more than you've ever known, there's a human part of us that says we're being wrong, we're being egotistical, we're being rude to ask for too much. Because who am I to ask for that much? But that's where the audacity of desire comes. Jesus said in Mark 11:24, therefore I tell you, whatever you ask in prayer, believe that you will have received it and it will be yours. That we have the right to ask for what we want. Will you say that with me? I have the right to ask for what I want. You believe that? Two of you, great. All right, one more time. I have the right to ask for what I want. One more time, big energy. I have the right to ask for what I want. Napoleon Hill in Think and Grow Rich said this: the starting point of all achievement is desire. Keep this constantly in mind. Weak desires bring forth weak results, just as a small fire brings forth a small amount of heat. He goes on, you are the master of your destiny. You can influence, direct, and control your environment. You can make your life what you want it to be. One of my favorite little poems was in Think and Grow Rich. I bargained with life for a penny, and life would pay me no more. Whenever I begged at evening, when I counted my scanty store, for life is a just employer, and he gives us what you ask. But once you've set the wages, why, you must fulfill the task. I worked for menial hire, only to learn in dismay that one wage that I had asked for in life, life would have gladly paid. Whatever wage I would ask for life, life would have gladly paid. Today, do you feel like you're asking from life all that you truly want? Do you really believe that you're accessing all the good that God has for you? And if you do, fabulous. But I don't believe that most of us are. I think most of us are kind of hedging our bets and saying, well, I have enough, or it's good enough, or I should be satisfied, I should be content. But I don't think most of us are really laying hold of the infinite reservoir of God's good and bringing it into our lives. Because once we're satisfied with this earthly kingdom, once we feel blessed in this earthly kingdom, then our desires move to a spiritual level. And once we move to the spiritual level, there's always more God available to all of us. But we have to start with where we are. We have to start with the audacity of our desires. That who am I to ask for more when I already have so much? But the reality is, in an infinite universe, it's the Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. So the first one is the audacity of desire. The second one is the audacity of worth. It takes a strong individual to believe that you are worthy of that which you desire. One of the greatest challenges we face in life is our own sense of worth. I believe that worth is the master program in our life. And whatever we truly believe that we are worthy of is what shows up into our life. And that we can ask and beg the universe for more, but only that which we feel worthy of shows up. And I think probably all of us have felt an experience in our life when we wanted so much more from life, and we asked for it, we even begged for it in prayer, thinking that that begging would somehow get Big Daddy God to finally cut it loose and give it to us. And the defining principle is worth. Whatever you believe that you are worthy of, ask in prayer, and it will be done unto you. But when you don't believe you're worthy of it, that worth is a limitation to the possibilities in your life. And we can look at many, many famous people whose life got so big, so great. They had so many opportunities. They had so many blessings. And then they did something to implode it. Why would they ever do that? They would do that because they didn't feel truly worthy of the life that they were given. So they had to shrink their life down in a size to what they could handle, and they imploded. Our worth defines what we allow ourselves to receive. This is a blog from Mary Paulus. Have you ever asked yourself these questions? Do you believe that you deserve to receive what you desire? Do you believe that you're worthy of your desires? These questions were recently asked of me by a friend of mine while we were discussing a very specific area of my life. When I thought about it, I realized the shocking answer was no. I don't believe. That startled me, and thus began a journey into questioning a number of areas of my life. I had never consciously allowed myself to go there, to explore those beliefs and feelings of lack of unworthiness. It was very uncomfortable, scary for me to face them. But I realized that those false beliefs were holding me back from getting everything I desired. Talk about a massive roadblock. I am worthy of all that I desire. Will you say that with me? I am worthy of all that I desire. So here's the deal. If we don't change our sense of worth, our sense of worth will play out to the end. If you want to live a bigger, greater life in any way, we have to fundamentally change our own sense of inner worth to live a bigger life. Because it's not God, it's not the universe withholding from us, it's our own inner sense of worth that limits how much good we experience. I am worthy of all my desires. Together? I am worthy of all my desires. Let's just say it like we're excited about that, okay? Ready? I am worthy of all that I desire. At the first service, I asked for 2 areas in your life, and it was too much. So at this service, I'm going to scale your homework back. I want you to look at one area in your life where you know that you could be more fully blessed. Does everybody have one? It can be in finance, it can be in relationship, it can be in health, it can be in joy, it can be in peace. I want you to pick one area in your life, and I want you to be willing to acknowledge the desires of your heart. And then I want you to really look into your own soul and say, am I worthy of that much good? Do I feel worthy of living a life that would be that blessed? And I want you to feel these 2 situations, these 2 aspects of desire and worth in an audaciously wonderful way of propelling you to a greater kingdom than you've ever lived in before. Because at some level, the ultimate question is, do you feel worthy of all the good that God is? Now, you can say you feel worthy because you've done all these good things. Or you can say that you're worthy because you were created in the image and likeness of God. That you are God's beloved. I am worthy of all the good that God has for me. Together? I am worthy of all the good that God has for me. One more time like we really mean it. I am worthy of all the good that God has for me. Last time. I am worthy of all the good that God has for me. Will you pray with me? I want you to open your mind, your heart, your soul to the activity of God. Today we allow desire and worth to change our life, to change the game, to change our kingdom. Wherever you have known lack or limitation, wherever your soul has felt pinched and living a life that was too small for you, today we allow worth and desire to transform our life. That we're willing to claim a life that's big enough for our soul, a life good enough and worthy for a child of God, that I am worthy of all that I desire. In the name and through the power of the living Christ, it is done. Amen. God bless you all. Have a great week. Thanks for being here. So as we move into this time of prayer and meditation, I invite you to feel the presence of God that is within you and all around you. And today, would you be willing to have a profound experience of God? Sometimes we think about God or talk about God, but there's a moment where your soul experiences God directly, where your soul has this profound experience that changes us. Sometimes it's called a mystical experience. Sometimes it is known as oneness. Today, would you be willing to open your mind, your heart, your soul to experience your profound oneness with God? That God is always right there. And sometimes we get so busy in our thoughts and so busy with our life that we miss the opportunity for something that is so profound and sacred. Sometimes we're even afraid of it. To have a direct personal relationship with the infinite. But it's always there. As a quiet invitation to your soul. Sometimes we feel a tingling in our body or a glow within us. And we know it's the Spirit of God moving through us. As a healing presence, as a moment of pure insight, as a divine blessing. This morning we open ourselves to God. We open ourselves to all that God is. To have a firsthand, direct experience with the infinite. To download the divine in and through every cell of our body. So in this time of silence, let your mind become still. Let your emotions be at peace. Let your body rest in the chair. And let your soul know God. Holy Spirit, I want to know you more. I want to feel you more. I surrender all that I am and all that I hope to be, that I may be a channel for your infinite goodness, that I may be clear, true, powerful in my expression of you. I give you all that I am, God, that I may glorify you in all things. In the name and through the power of the living Christ, we give thanks. And so it is.